Welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JM International. Get ready to explore conversations with those making a difference through music.
Hello, and welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JMI, Jeunesse Musicales International, the global network of NGOs that empowers young people through music across all boundaries. In this episode, we're joined by Juan Sebastián Aguilar, composer, electric guitarist, and publishing specialist, whose career bridges the worlds of music creation and the business systems that sustain it. Originally from Colombia, Juan's journey has taken him from jazz stages in Bogotá and Mexico to music industry leadership in Berlin, where he now heads publishing at Paradise Worldwide. Alongside his own ensemble, he has toured internationally, performed at major festivals, and developed a deep understanding of how to protect and monetize creative work on a global scale. We talk about the entrepreneurial mindset as a powerful driver in today's music industry, the key lessons from Juan's musical path from Colombia to New Orleans and then to Berlin, and why understanding music rights is essential for every artist. He also gives us a publishing one-on-one crash course and shares his thoughts on the fast-approaching challenges and opportunities of AI in music rights management. As always, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate the podcast. We hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. First, can you share a little bit about your journey into music?
Absolutely. So I started music as a kid. I would say formally when I was 4 years old, and I received my first violin from an uncle who was a luthier. So before that, I remember going to my friends' parties, as kids, and we would receive toy instruments as presents, and I would play like Christmas carols in these instruments. I would play folk songs. I'm from Bogotá, Colombia, so it's not unusual to listen to folk in the radio, for example. So my parents kind of picked on this, let's say, willingness to naturally play music, and they gifted me my first violin. My parents had received, let's say, musical training as kids themselves. My father had learned the violin a little bit. He played a little bit of Andean flute and Andean percussion. And my mom received some piano training. So, they were familiar with music training, with classical music, and they had a taste for it. So I received my first violin at 4, and then I traveled to the Netherlands where I took violin lessons with a violin teacher from The Hague who used to play in Baroque ensembles in the Netherlands. So then I came back to Colombia at 6. I kept playing the violin. I loved it very much. At one point, I guess I really wanted to be a violin player when I grew up. Well, by the time I was 11, I switched to rock and I stopped playing the violin. I remember my mom telling me, okay, you can stop violin lessons, but you cannot leave music. And I was like, I'm completely fine with this, So I want to be a drummer, And at this time I was listening to Blink-182, so I wanted to be like Travis Barker or something like this, And
Nice.
we were taking a look at musical instruments in Bogotá, and I got into... I found the electric guitar yet more appealing, and it was very easy for me to switch this interest. I received my first electric guitar by the time I was 11, and I fell in love with this. So I used to play, let's say, rock metal covers with my homies back then who also played the electric guitar. So we would play Iron Maiden covers, Guns N' Roses covers, these kind of things. And by this time, I was pretty sure that I wanted to study music. And my parents encouraged this quite a lot, which has been a blessing for me my entire life. And after high school, I graduated. After I graduated from high school, I studied music. I studied music composition, jazz, and electric guitar. And I studied this at the University in Bogotá. I did an exchange semester in New Orleans. I was composing my own music, let's say pretty inspired by a model from a sax player from New York, or based in New York, called Tony Malaby, in which he said, look, in New York, musicians are very busy. So what we do sometimes is that we gather a group of people and the host provides music to the group of people so that they can play the head and improvise together, make music together. Nothing complicated. He says, when I'm the host, I'll write music pieces in no more than one page so that we can get it going, And this concept was for me perfect because I wanted to have my own ensemble and I didn't want to, like people get so fetishistic about pedals and things like this, which are at certain point, I think it's part of the music charm, it's the music tech kind of thing. But for me, what was really important was to get music, to make songs and play them, regardless of what, making it as simple as possible. So this was, of course, for me, very inspiring. So I remember after this conference, I gathered two colleagues from uni. One was a double bass player and the other was a drummer. And I was like, dude, let's make a band. I have my first song. Let's rehearse this Sunday. And I composed this first song in one sheet of paper, and this was my band's first song. And after this, everything just kind of started to work very well in the sense that everybody kind of knew the role playing like this, like following the head, improvising. Improvisation was very important for us. We were studying jazz as well. This was, of course, essential for us. And then I started mixing this with what I knew about music as a rock guitarist and these kind of things. And the band, I was filling in forms to apply for grants from the Ministry of Culture, from the local offices, which support culture. And I was winning these prizes, for my band representing the group. The group was not, let's say, admin savvy at all, and I came to accept this. So I just did it myself, and as the representative of the group. So I realized that I also had this, let's say, kind of skills, organizational skills, So I started managing the band, and we did tours through Colombia, Mexico. I also won some prizes as a performer of the guitar, sponsored by the Colombian Central Bank. Which was great because you get to play in fantastic venues and you get some press recognition, these kind of things. So let's say back then, this was 2017, 18. I was, I was living a musician's life, teaching music too, back in Bogotá, and I was in my head, I had many thoughts, regarding the processes, power dynamics, or let's say relational dynamics, all these kind of things. But of course, I noticed that the people I was playing with were pretty interested in this. They were interested in playing music. So I was like, fuck, who can I talk about this with, Then I thought to myself, I need some time to think, and write about these things. I come from a family of academics, So I told my parents, I want to leave Colombia. My father had studied in Germany, and he had always told me, okay, dude, you should go to Germany to study. So this is exactly what I did. I studied a master's in sound studies and sonic arts in Berlin, where I live currently. There I had time to think and write about what I was doing, as a composer, performer, manager, all these kind of things, and I got to know many like-minded people and read many texts about very like-minded people. I was like, shit, man. It's very interesting to see, the things you discover in life, So during my studies, I was looking for a job in the music industry. I reached out to my boss, to the guy who is currently my boss. I told him about my background. Back then, I brought a Colombian sound art collective to Berlin in cooperation with Goethe Institute. And, all these management projects, in which I was not necessarily playing, but supporting somebody else, and this is how I got to Paradise Worldwide, the company where I work, and where I apply the skills mostly relating to international cooperation and music publishing, which I learned when I was interested in showcasing my projects and monetizing them back in Colombia, working with the local collecting society, for monetizing usage of music in television, radio, internet, all of these kind of things. So this is, let's say, a summary of the most important events that lead me to where I am currently.
So if I understand correctly, from Baroque to metal to jazz to management.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly.
Do you still touch the violin from time to time, or not really?
No, I don't. I was 10 years old when I told my mom, like, I'm done with this. And when she told me, like, okay, you can leave music, you can leave the violin, but you cannot leave music. And she was like, you're going to do 6 more months. And these 6 more months for me were terrible because I was decided already, you know. And on top of this, she was like, oh, and I have a surprise for you. And she did this with all her loving heart. And she was like, I have a surprise for you. On top of your weekly lesson on Tuesdays, yeah, on Saturdays, you're going to have orchestral practice with a juvenile orchestra. And I was like, dude, no, you know. So at the end, I was like, I'm done, you know. So no, I think I've picked up the violin 3 or 4 times after this.
Okay. I mean, part of the charm of being the host on a podcast is that I can ask whatever I like. So maybe the people listening want to hear very different things, but I'm just really curious because I've heard so many good things. How was New Orleans?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I loved the city for many reasons. I mean, it is a very fun city. People are very lovely. The music is amazing. I have the suspicion that jazz, let's say the traditional New Orleans jazz, has very strong ties to tourism and commerce, reason for which I think people protect this heritage specially. You know, I mean, I haven't done any kind of economic analysis of this, but it's a feeling that I got. Many of the teachers I had at uni there, you know, were performing these kind of musics, and they were, you know, like they protect the jazz tradition, and it's just beautiful, man. I mean, the music, the people there dance to this kind of jazz. When you go to Frenchman Street, where you find the best jazz bars there at the French Quarter, and it was amazing. I mean, the university was great, the teachers were great. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you listen to a lot of traditional jazz there.
Nice. Before we get more into Paradise and publishing and all the sort of ins and out of these things that people want to know more about, I'm curious because what I hear is that you describe this, I would say maybe an inclination to the more managerial, entrepreneurial mindset where you want to understand the industry and build from there. Is that something in your character? Is that something that happened? Because I think we need more of that. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say there were a few very important moments in my life. Let's say in my music management formation, which have been very influential for me, and it was speaking to people from the music industry in the context of music conferences, you know, in which they pinpointed very specific things that gave me a very clear direction. One of these was this woman who currently works with classical music from Colombia and manages, like, she is based in Colombia working with Colombian musicians, but people who are playing at the Met in New York and these kind of things. And she had said to me, like, because, I mean, I found out that she was teaching a course at my uni in Bogotá, and the drummer of my band had taken this course, and he was like, well, maybe speak to her. You know? This is exactly what I did. So we had recorded our first album, and I was like, yeah, here you go. This is my this is my album. Kind of expecting that you do this and she's gonna listen the album to its smallest detail, you know, and fall in love with it, and then you're gonna be performing Lollapalooza, you know, like you get you can become very delusional when you get so self-absorbed, and this is what happens. This is also one of the beauties of music. It's something you fall in love with completely. It's a part of yourself. But you need to be able to not lose sense of reality, you know. So I remember I met with this woman, and she said to me something very similar to that. She was like, "Okay, Juan, you sent me your album, but to be honest, I haven't even read it. You know, like, I haven't even heard it." And I was like, "Oh." And she was like, whenever you approach somebody like me, because I guess she also had an interest like in training people, you know, and this was beautiful. Just that she was like, whenever you send something to somebody like me, back then she was programming music at a university in Bogotá, and she had been programming music at a very important hall in Bogotá. She was like, you need to be able to provide some arguments as to why somebody would listen to this. What are you going to do with this music? What makes it interesting? It's not good enough to send me a Dropbox link as I did and expect me to listen to it. And she was like, whenever you reach out to somebody, you need to have something to propose. And this sentence was for me like a game changer for sure, because sometimes we kind of like whine, and we're not actually pursuing a compelling way for change, So this was a very important moment for me, I would say, which made me think, okay, I do music which I love, which sounds very honest to me, which is very important. You need to be connected with what you do. And I was like, okay, but now I need to be able to explain this connection, also knowing that if somebody receives a link, I mean, why would they open it? So then you kind of start to build a discourse, around what you're doing. Nowadays, there are many, say, popular expressions in the mainstream media, like the narrative or all of these kind of things, which are very important, of course, but one needs to be able to narrow it down to something very simple.
I love that. Funny enough, the very, very first workshop that I ever gave, let's say in the music industry setting, was a workshop called The Do's and Don'ts of Sending Your Demo.
Yeah.
So for me, that's also apparently how it started. And then I built from there many different workshops more in the field of branding. And exactly like you said, there's a model that we've created that kind of specifies three most important elements. Is first, be authentic, which is, I think, what you mean with saying like stay true to yourself, know what you make and be real. Then make it relatable so that people actually can understand and see the value in it, and then do that consistently throughout everything you do. And then it's a good start.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Paradise. Maybe for people listening that have not heard about Paradise, what is Paradise?
Paradise is a music aggregator and publisher, founded in Berlin in 2009. So this means we distribute music to DSPs like Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, Tidal, and so on. And we manage rights, so we collect the royalties generated by the usage of this music on DSPs, but not limited to DSPs. When we handle or administer the publishing rights, this means we're collecting royalties for usage on television, radio, also DSPs, live concerts, and so on. And we do this as members of, I would say, the most relevant collecting societies worldwide. I'm working in the publishing department. I'm leading the publishing department. I have an interest in the acquisition process, reason for which I acquire clients in order to explain them the advantages of this rights management that we do at Paradise. Paradise, I would say, is also characterized it's characterized for wanting to know our clients. It's not just let's say an interface which allows no additional communication, but what's demanded in the fields. I mean, we like to get to know who our clients are, because through these conversations you also get to know, let's say, about new ways through which you could build value. So we like to travel to conferences. We have our own conference, which is directed by the head of Paradise Africa, and it's called the Africa Rising Music Conference. We want to get to know what's happening in the music industry in different territories.
And as an artist, can you just apply to Paradise, or do you have to be found, or how does that work?
There's both possibilities. So, for example, when we travel to conferences and these kind of events, we get to know music which was not in our radar. It will definitely happen, even if you look up the entire list. And there's something that you will find out that you hadn't seen before and will be of your interest. So we find artists to who we talk to, explain our service, and create partnerships with. I mean, we don't like to see them as clients only. I mean, I would say it has more the dynamics of a partnership, given that there's so much communication, and brainstorming, these kind of things. But they can also find us through our website, Instagram. We get many clients through Instagram, because people are like, how can I join the service? And then we will begin communications via email, via calls, these kind of things. So yeah, and we have another type of, let's say, branch called Paradise Direct, through which clients who are not interested in calls or these kind of things just submit their music, and whenever, let's say, it complies to market standards, we will distribute.
Okay, very clear. Let's talk about that elephant in the room, music rights.
Music rights.
I know I've worked with a lot of musicians, young or not so young, telling them about this, and like, what, really? If I send my set list after I perform on a big stage, I can get extra money for that? Yeah, you can. Can you give us a little breakdown about music rights and what we should know?
Okay, so music rights, let's say this field is a very complex one, in the sense that there isn't much clarity about how these royalties can actually be collected. There isn't much clarity from the artists, the labels, even the publishers in some cases, or even incomplete answers from PROs, MROs, so this is what I mean by lack of clarity, which, like when people start to get confused and miss words and all these kind of things, it becomes a very opaque thing, but it shouldn't be like this. First and foremost, I would say what's most important is to know the difference between a music composition and a recording. So let's start with a music composition. And let's say two main elements of a music composition, which are the text and the composition. There is, of course, music without text, so then it's just the composition. It is possible to monetize music, the work. This is called the musical work. It is possible to monetize the musical work without the musical work being recorded. Okay, so for example, if the example you provided with, you play a song which has never been recorded, but it is your composition, and you play it at a conference or a venue or at a big event, you will be able to collect performance revenue, which is called public performance. And the entity in charge of collecting and paying these monies out is going to be a PRO. We're currently in France. SACEM does this in France. I'm based in Germany. GEMA does this in Germany. Every country, or most countries have their PRO and their MROs, like for performance and mechanical rights. So let's say this is an example of how you could monetize a composition. Now let's say you record this composition. There's also there's a new layer, or there's a new right, which is the rights for the recording, the master rights. Okay, so people receive monies from DSPs for, let's say, the streaming royalties, but there are also neighboring rights, which are collected and paid out by neighboring rights societies. So in Germany, this is called GVL. I believe France has quite a few. I don't remember the names right now, but famous is also PPL in the UK, Asimpro in Colombia. There are many of these societies which are in charge of protecting the owners of the recording, which traditionally have been labels. But there's also a neighboring right for the performers in the recording. So this means the guy who played the guitar, the person who played the drums, these kind of things. And they should get memberships to the neighboring right society in order to get paid out. So, I mean, as I speak, I know it can be a bit difficult to follow, because there are so many different types of rights, so many different types of roles. Well, as I said before, master and composition, the master and the musical work, the most important roles are of the composer, of the author of the text, of the label, which is the owner of the recording, which can also be the artist, and of the music performers, which is not to be confused with the performance rights. And for the exploitation of the musical work, it's the right to be broadcasted publicly and or performed publicly, and the right to be reproduced in a musical recording, as when you press a series of vinyls or a series of cassettes or a series of CDs. Even Spotify pays mechanicals on performance too. Many people are not aware of this, but you see it in the report from collecting societies. At Paradise, we also do mechanical collection. So there are many revenues generated by the platforms, or the places which use music, as a central point of attention, or let's say as an important point of attention. And they will need these platforms, these places will need to pay out monies, which will then be distributed to the rights holders by aggregators, collecting societies.
I think the takeaway is, if you're an artist that writes their own music, then records and performs their own music, then there's a lot of different revenue streams to collect.
Correct. Yeah, nowadays, I mean, exactly. The composer is the same author. It's the same label. It's the producer. It's everything. So of course, yeah, you should get your memberships to all collecting societies so that you receive these revenues for all usage there is. Because I mean, people get very used to to one kind of royalty, which they will receive either by their collecting society or their aggregator, and sometimes they do not realize that these revenues are to be sought after through different sources. At Paradise, we try to bring everything together, but traditionally they've been separated from each other.
And within all this chaos, because it is very complicated, it's chaotic. For artists that are hearing this and like, whoa, it's like a new world opening in front of their eyes, and they have never done this. Can they still do this? This is like, can you get your money even from some time back?
You can collect retroactively. I mean, normally they say it's up to 3 years back, and that is, let's say, kind of true. It depends on the territory, of course, and let's say the copyright law in this specific territory. But we've currently seen at Paradise that some collecting societies have made the effort to go even further back, and I've seen reports which include royalties which hadn't been paid out since 2009.
Wow.
I saw this recently because, I mean, the world is trying to organize itself, in relation to reporting, now with this, let's say, yet more, I mean, human beings have noticed that they can control or tame the world and tame data even more, and there's AI and these kind of things. So, of course, when it comes to money, you can imagine, how thorough this can become, and when people start asking questions, of course, the responsible companies for paying these things out, these royalties out, and then make efforts to pay out. So yeah, it is possible to go back in time, but not always. Again, as you say, it can become a very nitty-gritty kind of thing, but there is the possibility of doing that. And you should become a member of these organizations in order, let's say, to have a compelling statement or something that actually will get you the money eventually.
So there is hope.
There is hope, absolutely.
So if I'm an artist listening and I don't try to flop myself, where would I start? Like, what is the 1 or 2 actions I should take first?
So as an artist, for sure, becoming a member of a neighboring rights collecting society or neighboring rights organization. If you're an artist who writes your own music, become a member of a collecting society for performance and mechanical royalties. In some countries, it's going to be the same society, like in Germany or Colombia. In some countries like the US, they're going to be separate, like ASCAP and BMI doing performance and the MLC, Harry Fox Agency, doing mechanicals. So first of all, yeah, make sure you get a membership to a collecting society or to collecting society which will collect performance and mechanicals for you. Then for a mechanical society, and if you have no interest in the label, then make a contract directly with the distributing company, which will create, let's say, like a placeholder for the label, which will be your artist name.
And another tip that I find very helpful, I've actually tried this recently, is that if you use, because we're going to talk about AI later as well, if you have questions, you can, most of the time, you can tell ChatGPT or any other LLM, this is my situation, I write this, I do this is all the sort of things, I'm based in this country, what is the best thing I could do? And most of the time the answer is pretty decent, or it will ask you more questions like, oh, do you also write, do you perform, blah, 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 and it will give you sort of some suggestions like register here and here, which I think is quite useful.
Absolutely. I would, yeah, for sure. And try to ask ChatGPT to send you, let's say, different alternatives so that you can navigate the Q&A in different portals and these kind of things. I mean, make sure you go directly to the source, you know. Yeah.
And then I think there are also collection societies, and I think Paradise is the same, that now if you register in one, they actually register for you.
Correct.
In many countries,
Correct.
Which I think, besides making sure that it's as accurate as possible, it also ensures you get paid out as soon as possible, because if you do it just to your national one, they have deals with their other countries that sometimes take 2 or more years to then arrive, and it just becomes very messy and chaotic.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit about AI, because of course with the advent of AI and the sort of booming of AI and also AI music, this also has a lot of rights and publishing and questions and ethical questions. What is your perspective?
Yeah, so currently at the company, we have a department which is related to all AI affairs. It's the interest is to license music to companies which are interested in using catalogs or as training data for Gen AI systems. Okay, so what has traditionally been happening over the past years is that companies creating Gen AI products use databases which have not been licensed for this purpose. You know, so if you create a song and it was somehow in the internet and the company is, let's say, has the infrastructure to scrape the music of the internet, including your song, to train their machines. I mean, your creation has been used, you know, without your authorization for this purpose. And some lawyers claim, and I think with all reason, that it was not possible to foresee such a usage, you know. So therefore, it's important to regulate it, you know, so that rights holders get paid. This means this becomes a specific type of right, you know, like licensing music for AI purposes. Let's say this in comparison to different practices which have been normal, like covering songs or remixing songs, which demand permission from rights holders to be commercially exploited. The AI world needs to learn that it is necessary to license music to train these kind of works. I mean, I'm talking specifically about music now. I mean, of course, there is AI for video. There is AI to predict criminality, all of these kind of things. But I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on Gen AI in the realm of music creation. So some AIs will make songs, other AIs will master your music, will mix your music, these kind of things. Other AIs will break a recording down into different kinds of steps, these kind of things. But for this to happen, you need to have trained the machine with already existing music, you know, because it responds to a human being who has a prejudiced notion of what music is.
And is there, like, let me rephrase, how is the response to this? Like, are you actually able to license catalogs for this purpose? Are there companies that are sort of jumping on this specific strategy?
We are currently, I mean, there are companies that are trying to do this. We are developing this model in which we have the principle to, I mean, we need to control the master, the publishing, and the AI right, in order to be able to ethically license this music. Okay, so for us, it is necessary to control these three fronts, and you do this, let's say, through a contract which says that you control the publishing, the master, and the AI right. And then there is a complete clarity on by the part of the rights holders, which says the music is going to be used for these purposes. That's the point. It's not like trying to trick to make things yet more confusing. It's trying to say, like, look, this is something that's happening right now. It's being invented. We are inventing it too, and responding to what we consider is correct. This is the way to move forward. Okay, so it's just showing the most effective way, to license and demand payments for a certain usage of the catalog. Because in music, there are many types of rights, and the point of the right is like asking permission for something. I create something, and then the question is like, what does my counterpart want to do with this? Do I accept? Do I not accept? And that's why it gets complicated, because there are many different situations, which make the all types of usage different, and the AI is one of these. And let's say what I defend is that the rights holders get paid, for any usage of the music they create or they own.
And I think this is a typical example of technology is moving so fast as legislation can never hold up to that, unfortunately. So in the current situation, if an AI generates a music piece, who owns the rights? And maybe a follow-up question, because I kind of know where this is going. Do you think we're going to see a lot of lawsuits and things happening?
For sure. I mean, collecting societies around the world have sued companies which have done, let's say, illegal use of AI, which means that the music used to train the machine was not licensed. The music rights world is always full with lawsuits. It's a contract heavy kind of realm, in which sometimes there's much room for interpretation, so people who think they could foresee the AI world and try to explain this through some kind of contract clause, which is vague and ambiguous. There's a lot of this. Some more relevant than others, I would say, for the development of mankind, let's say. But yeah, there will certainly be many lawsuits. But I would say, like, people are inventing a technology and they're inventing different usages for it. And I think as long as people try to play a fair game, there shouldn't be a problem. As long as there is clarity that if you use music that's been created by another human being, you need to pay for it. As long as there is clarity, and a willingness to clear this, there shouldn't be a problem. Who owns the rights of the AI output, you mean? Or no, that's it also depends, because if the AI has an output which is then tamed by a human being, it's let's say it's like the paradigm of the musical instrument. Let's say in academic texts, for example, there are many people referring to the AWs like Ableton, Logic, and these kind of programs as musical instruments. And there's even the expression digital luthiers. I think it's important to stretch these terms sometimes, in order to understand, like, okay, yeah, maybe a digital device can be seen as a musical instrument, in the sense that, yeah, it sounds a certain way, but then it's a human being that's taming this, And of course, it's like, when you learn music, you're playing scales, and you're playing all these you're playing within a certain beat or not, and you're not like the owner of C major, or you're not the owner of the 100 BPM tempo, it's this kind of thing. It's I think also like being reasonable, about usage. If everybody agrees that the music sounds like a song which is well known to the general public, and you just try to fight it, this does not make much sense. Then if this is the case, I would say, well, the rights holder is the person who can be tracked as the original composer.
Let's move back into the human realm. Do you still perform? Do you still make music yourself?
Yeah, actually, I do. I do perform and compose. I recently I founded a company with a homie of mine in Berlin. He owns a studio. He's a very proficient producer, sound mixer, does mastering and Dolby Atmos. And we had a recording session last week in which I recorded 8 creations of mine, 3 of which are original compositions, 2 arrangements of Colombian folk, and 3 arrangements of jazz standards, which I'll be releasing through our publishing company and label later on this year.
If people want to connect with you directly, listen to your music, or want to find out more about Paradise and everything Paradise, so to speak, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they find Paradise?
You can find Paradise on Instagram, Paradise Worldwide. You can find me, you can find my music on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, Tidal, and so on. My band is called Arrabalero with 2 R's. And my name is Juan Aguilar. You'll find me as a solo artist in 4 months' time on Spotify and all other DSPs.
As always, the very last question. What is the power of music?
The power of music is to bring people together peacefully and joyfully, I would say.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for listening. If you want more information about JM, or you would like to get involved, visit www.jmi.net. At JMI, we are on a mission to make the world more musical. That's why we created Mubazar, a digital platform that helps us manage all our musical activities across 80 countries worldwide, connecting musicians with opportunities to grow both personally and professionally. If you are a music professional looking for a better way to manage and promote your music activities, check out Mubazar. Created for music organizers, by music organizers, Mubazar allows you to run music competitions, workshops, camps, auditions, masterclasses, awards, events, and much more. Mubazar offers custom application forms, payments for your activities, jury tools, translations, analytics, and more. Mubazar is fast becoming the best place for musicians to find and apply for music opportunities online, and you can sign up today for a free organizer account by going to www.mubazar.com, registering, and then requesting to upgrade to an organizer on the right-hand menu. For more info, don't hesitate to get in touch via support@mubazar.com. It would mean a lot to us if you could give us 1 minute of your time and rate and review the podcast. In case you have any suggestions or would like to be one of our next guests, feel free to reach out to us through the JMI socials.